Asia on my right and Europe on my left. We are on the Bosphorus right now in Istanbul. You're watching Bella Visits Turkey. To wrap up 2015, we from Bella decided to seize the day, pack our bags and bring home some goodies. Turkey is where we landed this time, the land of the crescent moon. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think of when you were to picture Turkey? Its rich history, of the beautiful landscapes, or stories of the different warriors? Standing in between Asia and Europe, Turkey is definitely worthy to be discovered in its very own use of a melting pot of culture and history. Also, being the 6th most visited countries worldwide in international tourism 2014, Turkey records a stunning 39.8 million of tourist arrivals last year. What more than starting off with the glimpse of city life in Turkey? And that, naturally, is of course for Istanbul to take over. Istanbul is a talk-about city to travel since years back then, probably from the movies, advertisements, or the screen exposures on our TV of late. It lays a beautiful charm within, maybe because of it being historically and culturally unique, or perhaps because of the fact that it's been straddled between the Bosphorus Strait, Marmara Sea and the Black Sea. We ourselves can't decide. When you're in Istanbul, you're not only open to learn about the history of Byzantine Christians and the Ottoman Empire. Its historical architecture furthermore tells the great stories, as if you're living through it. Istanbul has quite a lot to inspire. If you have enough time to admire the city externally and internally, she easily teaches us to appreciate and preserve the past, and also to nurture what we own in the present. With no second doubts, that description fits easily to the life of the vicinity of Sultan Ahmet. And this is only the appetizer of your typical Istanbul experience. This is the Blue Mosque, also known as one of the most photogenic places here in Istanbul. It is the grand project of Sultan Ahmet back in the 17th century. Let's take a look of how the interior looks like inside. Blue Mosque? Does it share similarities with Masjid Biru Shah Alam by any chance? No, we're rather far away from that. Also known as the Sultan Ahmet Mosque, it was first built to reassert the Ottoman power back in those days. Aimed for an overwhelming size, majesty and splendor, Sultan Ahmet removed funds from the treasury to have this project initiated. Well, I guess that's the biggest difference to point. The Blue Mosque got its unofficial name by the adornment of tens of thousands of these blue Iznik tiles. It has a very curvaceous exterior, featuring 6 minarets and a cascade of dome. Its amazing architecture is crafted with great proportion. Via the entrance through the Sultan Ahmet Park, you'll be amazed by this welcoming atmosphere. Across the Blue Mosque, the main attractions are actually within walking distance, which a few cities have such concentrations of sites and shops and eateries all together. Next up for us was the Topkapi Palace. This is where the sultans, courtiers, concubines and eunuchs of the Ottoman Empire lived together. Walking past the forecourts brings you back into time as stories from hundreds of years unfold in front of your eyes. With the marble terrace, safekeeping rooms, imperial treasury, palace kitchens and more, this palace is observed to be more like China's Forbidden City rather than a typical European palace. Secretly, I would agree that this shall be the place where I can find my other half and live happily ever after. Actually, no. This shall be the place to picture how it is to live a life here in the imperial court as an Ottoman sultan. In its heyday, 4,000 people lived within the Topkapi walls. Topkapi is such an extraordinary place that you must visit, because once you walk in, automatically you will feel that you were brought back to its glorious century. Right behind me stands Hagia Sophia, which literally translates to Holy Wisdom in Greek. This is one of the most important monuments in Istanbul and also the epitome of Byzantine architecture. This is also known for its rich history and religious importance. Hagia Sophia. Until today, it still sparks a little bit of goosebumps within me, I must say. Upon entering the building, I was immediately stunned by its atmosphere. Standing in front of the 56-meter dome, Ottoman medallions, and the 9th century mosaic of the Virgin and Christ Child, one couldn't imagine how much has happened in this monument. Hagia Sophia is consecrated as a church in year 537, converted to a mosque by Mehmed the Conqueror in 1453, and then declared a museum by Atatürk in 1935. The remained fragments of mosaics is a collection of documented stories, including Zoe, one of the only Byzantine women to rule as an empress in her own right. Restoration efforts have been approached throughout centuries, as it remained as one of the priorities of having this monument preserved. The stories of Hagia Sophia might not be enough to be carried through the lenses of the camera, but this place is where you will definitely seek and bring home something, whichever your interpretations are. Here's also a tip and reminder. When you are at a preserved building as such, give yourself a moment to indulge in the space, and you'll gain more than just peace and tranquility. Istanbul is also one of the most populous cities. If we Malaysia record a close to 30 million population, Istanbul alone hosts 20 million residents. Being in a strategic position on its sea route and the historic Silk Road, it produced a cosmopolitan populace throughout the history. Its cityscape never fails to have your attention retained, having the new and old spread through the 7 hills. Old school tram right here, oh my god! Traveling in the city could be relevantly easy. What's unique, you ask? You can enjoy the view of Istanbul on a cruise on the Bosphorus or via the old-school trams, where you can savor the life of the streets, as if living in the 70s. If you are traveling with your family, make sure your children are within sight. Be in control when the crowd is heavy, and for the solo travelers, it is best to travel light. For touristic areas, be extra careful of your belongings and be alert of your pocket being picked. Food here is extremely accessible when it comes to halal sources, having 99.8% of the population being Muslims.
My hand is an animal, and once there was an animal, it had a son that mowed the lawn.
On the side note, this city is also a place for the cat lovers, where the cats are observed to be typically fluffy over this winter-fall season.
But it came back with a story to say.
Once taken by Alexander the Great, Caesar, the Byzantines, and then the Turks, this city has been brought up to life by Atatürk, the father of the Turks, once he decided to take this as his base for the struggle of independence. This is Ankara.
Okay, enough about the commercial city sweet stories. Let's go to another metropolitan in Turkey, Ankara. It may look like Putrajaya from Malaysia or Washington DC from the States, as you can see many government offices and international corporate organizations around the city of Ankara. The Anıtkabir, the monumental mausoleum of the founder of modern Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, is one extraordinary monument to boast for its representation. The symmetrical signature of Anıtkabir is built with an abundance of marbles, stones, and porous travertine. Such grand architecture is considered by many to be the ultimate monument of the 1940s in Turkey, with great emphasis given to details and workmanship in construction. For many Turks, a visit to this monument is virtually a pilgrimage.
Hazır! Saçtınız! Nöbete! Marş! Break!
Istanbul and Ankara bind a unique merge to tell stories of the biggest metropolitan cities in Turkey. Perhaps it is the history of the great empires that marked the experience a special one, as if time has stopped amongst the pace of the megapolis. You will be drawn to the beauty that every country has a pulse beating for it, and more than often connected by its capital and historically influenced cities since centuries back then. If anything, we wish that there were more time for us to soak in what these two cities have to offer. There were, however, more of Turkey's jewels of Mother Nature calling out for us.
This is simply amazing. I can't really find the right words to describe how beautiful this place is. You have to catch it for yourself.